video, we're going to look at using random values in Python, just the basics. So there's a module called random, and we can use that module by having this line import random. And if we do that, let's see, we'll start off at the Python command prompt, the Python shell. So if I do random, there are different options here. So there's a random.choice, and I can give it this kind of syntax. And what this is the square brackets there is a Python list that we'll see in the next chapter. And then inside of there, so it's choosing between these things, somewhat at random. There's a random.randint that you tell it a starting and a stopping value, and it'll pick a random integer in that range. There are other things that can be done with the random module, but just those two will be enough to do something interesting. Okay, so let's take a look at let's say we want to flip a coin. So I'm going to think of 0 as heads and 1 as tails. We're thinking of American coins that have a head on one side and a tail on the other. So the first thing we can do is just result equals a random.randint 0, 1. And then if the result is 0, we could say heads, otherwise tails. Alright, so let's see if that seems to work. We get a tails, a tails, a heads, so different values each time. Something else we could do is count how many heads and tails. Okay, so let's say we have heads count is 0, and I'm going to do this some number of times. And we know we can do that with for loops. Here's one way to do something some number of times. And so if the result is 1, I'm considering that a heads. And I'm just going to count. Maybe I want to have the results themselves as well. So one way we can do that is we can results equals an empty string, and then I'm going to put an H or a T onto that string each time. Like that. Okay, so at the end, I could print the results. Results, and then how many heads. Okay, so we have a counter that we start at 0. We increase it by 1 each time we see the thing we're counting. We have a string that's keeping track of results, and each time we add some letter to that string. And then we have our random choice. Let's see what happens. So 6 heads. And something we could do is we could play with different values here for this and what are the number of heads that are likely to come out. That would be kind of interesting. So it looks like 4, 5, 6 are kind of the most common. Let's say that we want to make this dice instead of coins. So I'm going to call this dice toss. So now I want to see what do I need to change to make this dice toss. Let's just say 1 die first. Okay, so it doesn't really make any sense to have a heads count now. And what would it be to roll 1 die? So 1 die would have a value between 1 and 6. Right, so it doesn't really make much sense to check whether the result is 1 or not, because 1 doesn't have any particular special value. But maybe we do want to still store the results. So we could say results equals results plus str result. Okay, so we still have our string. This is going to happen 10 times. We pick a random value for the die, and we have the store up all the die rolls. This is dice. And we see if we rolled 10 dice, there it is. Now, a lot of games will roll 2 dice, so let's say that we're going to roll 2 dice. So maybe I'll call this die 1, and we'll do the same thing for die 2. And maybe what we care about is the total of those 2 dies. And so let's say that we're going to store that total. And I'll put a space in there to separate things. Okay, so I roll a die, I roll another die, I add them up, I put that into a string. Okay, so which values do you think are going to be the most common if you roll 2 dice? So you could think through the math, or you could run the program and kind of keep track. It looks like maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are coming up more often. Okay, so we could do the same thing to generate anything that needs to be random. So dealing cards in a game or doing a simulation of something. Okay, so that's kind of